So we're to the point now where I would love to take your questions. I'm going to invite, yeah?
I got questions.
Okay, can I invite my school districts up too?
Sure.
So Laconia and Merrimack school districts have graciously agreed to spend their Monday here with us. And so, I'm going to invite them up.
So do a survey to the parents to see what their experience
Yes.
was.
Yep.
Okay, is that considered a separate component?
On those slides, yeah.
And do you have any way of determining, kids sometimes want to joke around on these things,
Yep.
and they don't always tell the truth.
Sure.
It's a teenage brain.
Yep.
Do you have any way of trying to determine that with these surveys, or are you just taking the data at face value?
I can't speak to how the data for the YRDS is processed because it happens at DHHS, but from what I understand, yes, the outlayers are kind of parceled off and to try to protect the data and to have some data integrity. Because our whole point in doing this is to have a better system, so we want to sort of plan for that and buffer for that.
The other question I have is related to, this is designed for mental health. Do you have any trainings that distinguish students who have special education needs versus students who have special mental health needs, because they don't necessarily fall into the same buckets?
The funding at the federal level that sort of kick-started us and kind of helps sustain us is focused on mental health. But in New Hampshire, in terms of how we have chosen to roll out this work, that is why we talk about student wellness, because we don't want it to be about the mental health of individual students. We want it to be about the wellness of a community and the folks there. So we don't collect, like I said, the student level data. I don't know if there's anything that either of you want to say about that, but it's not, nothing would really sort of cross the line between those two processes. That's actually the point of the youth mental health first aid, is what is typical adolescent development, what is atypical, and then what is mental illness versus not mental illness. So it just kind of walks through some generic like signs and symptoms. But
Because my other question would be, there are days when teenagers are just teenagers and they're blue.
Yep.
And are they distinguishing between that sort of angst versus an actual problem?
yeah, and I guess my answer to that would be we want to plan for it all. So even if it's just one day that they're struggling, we want to make sure that that one day is still the best day that our system can provide them.
Well, okay.
And we don't diagnose, so.
I guess my follow-up question to that would be also, are you teaching them to deal with adversity? Because adversity is going to happen when, you're going to get out of school and there's going to be adversity.
I would say overall, yeah, we try to teach kids in any interaction to deal with adversity. They face it all the time. You know, whether it's academic, whether it's social on the playground, wherever it would be. I think in general, and my colleagues can speak to it as well, we do that more through, like at the younger grades, they do it more through like the group time they have at the beginning of the school day, getting to know one another. But then it's real specific, right? If your child has a particular interaction during the course of a day, you assume that there will be a teacher or a guidance counselor or someone who will go and try to help that particular student deal with whatever the adversity she or he is facing. And you see those interactions hundreds of times every single school day.
Yeah.
How much is the federal grant? What's it, how much for?
So we have 3 right now. Yes. So Safe Schools, Healthy Students, the original grant has ended. That's gone away.
How much is that for?
8.6 million for 4 years, that turned into 5 years,
Yeah. And then Project Aware.
which is 9 point something million for 5 years, and we're in our 5th year.
And then System of Care is around 12 for 5 years.
12 million, and it ends in 2020.
The question was, is all of the funding federal, and how are you going to fund it after the grants run out? The answer is yes, all of the funding for the work that we're doing is federal, with the exception of one position in our office. When I showed you that first slide, there's one person there, Helene Anzalone, she's a prevention coordinator, that's state funded. all of the activities that we do and all of the rest of our staff are federally funded. We just keep writing for grants. And we just keep trying to assess the environment, see where their needs still exist, and figure out how to get the funding to address those needs.
Do you have particular grants in process right now that you're anticipating to get?
Yeah, we actually have 3 that we're trying to move through the fiscal committee and governor and executive council process right now. Excuse me. There's 2 Department of Justice grants and one from the U.S. Department of Education called School Climate Transformation Grant. We also just submitted on Christmas Eve another application for a second iteration of Project Aware. We also use for Project Grow a certain amount of discretionary IDEA, which is special education dollars. So when those dollars are available, they're used to address the needs that the field is identifying, and that was one use for those funds that we had done.
Through the IDEA money, are there any private or parochial schools that you work with?
Not directly, but like I said, and like you probably picked up from the PowerPoint presentation, a lot of what our office does is provide technical assistance and professional development. Although they are not named as recipients in that grant, I'd say I've probably talked to almost all of the charter schools at this point, and a fair number of parochial and other private schools as well. So we provide them all the same support.
Could our school districts talk about the sustainability efforts that you are taking on regarding, because it really shouldn't depend on funding that we get from the federal level. You all are doing a tremendous amount of work at the local level as well.
The beauty of federal grants is that it allows us the time and the resources to do the work that we wouldn't otherwise have the time and availability to do. Meaning, a lot of the professional development, it can't happen during the school day. So we have to come up with the time to do that, which requires resources to do that. So grants allow us that opportunity to build the skill set of our staff, to develop the systems that we are looking to have in place in our buildings. With sustainability efforts, we were a part of the original Safe Schools and Healthy Students grant that has ended. There are many things that we've sustained from that. We developed multiple additional preschool programs. Those still live on. We have multiple positions in our district, social workers as an example, those live on. So we leverage our funding depending on what is applicable. Title I, IDEA, local funding, things of that nature.
When we started our work approximately 4 years ago, we did not have any grants. And it was under the vision of our superintendent based on what we were hearing from families and educators. And we said we needed to do this work with no funding. During that time frame, we were awarded the Project Grow grant, which helped to continue with the work that we're doing overall as part of our system of care. And so the funding that we've received and how we've supported our system of care has been within the operating budget or has been within how we run our school district. And the Project Grow grant has helped us accelerate some of those efforts that we had as part of our system of care. And so, for example, significant amount of our time has been training staff. That has long-term sustainability. We've also been evaluating a social and emotional learning curriculum. That has long-term sustainability. That has also, the evaluation has been funded partly by Project Go, but also part of our operating budget. So again, we started this work without grants. We will continue to do this work. We're doing it within a system of care to ensure that it is sustainable and that all partners are part of this effort. And some of our partners are school-related, but also within our community as well. And we have spent a significant amount of time partnering with our community, partnering with state levels, partnering with other districts to leverage some of the resources and training that they've had. And so at the outset, in Merrimack anyways, it was not part of a grant. And that's why we've been able to have sustainability in our district, and we'll continue to have that.
And I want to piggyback on what Julie's saying about Project Grow. The majority of what we're getting from that grant is not financial resources. It is consultation, it is support, it is time with other districts. It is all professional development, essentially. So I feel like I need to point that out, that we're not getting a ton of money. It's not staffing positions, as an example.
And in addition to, it's out to our community and our parents too. I think we've done a lot of work in Merrimack to try to leverage what we already had in place with some strong community, strong parent advocacy within our community, and leverage that more to bring in presenters, to bring in training, to help run night events for our parents, to kind of get the word out in the community. What are we doing? What are we trying to sustain? Some of this really is about awareness, and we're trying to do that. And that's a lot of just boots on the ground, and a lot of people rallying our own staff and our own buildings to be part of that and training them, as Julie said. And to McKenzie's point too, it's an opportunity to bring the effort forward by utilizing and leveraging some of the grow money to keep going what we already do with our own people.
Can you walk us through the process of social emotional learning, and assessments? You have student A, who is just your average student, probably under any kind of care would determine that they are pretty functional, pretty normal. You have student B, who might be having suicidal thoughts, but nobody really knows this. You have student C, who might just, have some sadness. So how do you get me through this process, like where the assessment begins? When are parents informed and give their consent? Antioch and UNH you have memorandums of understanding with these organizations. They get the data. Where does that data go from them? From point A to all the way through the end. Just walk us through the process of student A, B, and C. How does that work for parents?
So I think there's two things happening. One, we're not doing assessments in the classroom, so I'm not sure what assessment you're referring to. But our MOUs with Antioch and UNH are very specific to system of care. That's not related to anything happening in the classroom. Those are related to less than 10 families in our district who are a part of that. It's specific to high fidelity wraparound. So anything that Antioch and UNH is getting was consented by a parent for that to be released. So there is no data coming from our
How
buildings.
did you even get to tier 3 with these families? Like, how did you identify them? How did you get there?
There's lots of ways families rise to that need. More times than not, families come to us with their needs, and they're asking us for their assistance. Whether they're homeless, whether they have an incarcerated parent, whether it's substance misuse, what have you, a lot of times they're coming to us with those needs. Sometimes the kids rise to the surface because they're already involved in DCYF, so we already have these people coming to the table with us, trying to support these children. That's how that